Ever wonder who's out there making the world go round? It's truckers. Who unites baristas with coffee beans? Truckers. Who unites dogs with their favorite chew toy? Truckers. That's why Progressive offers truckers even more protection with Cargo Plus coverage to keep truckers moving right along. Quote truck insurance today in as little as 8 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Coverage subject to policy terms, limits, and conditions. Not yet available in California, New York, and Virginia.
Ever walk past a place for rent and wish you could just take a peek inside? Maybe even explore the layout. Envision the natural light streaming through the windows. Or plan where your vinyl record collection would go. At Apartments.com, you can. With tools like their 3D virtual tours, you can see the exact unit you could be living in. Really envision yourself in your new home with Apartments.com, the place to find a place.
This is pro linebacker TJ Watt.
And I'm former pro soccer player Danny Watt.
We're excited to be partnering again with YPB by Abercrombie for a summer on the move.
And when it comes to activewear, I consider myself the true professional. I'm obsessed with the YPB matching sets and dresses. The Studio Flex fabric is buttery soft and always comfortable, whether I'm in workout mode or mom mode.
This summer, shop YPB by Abercrombie
in the app, online, and in stores.
This series is sponsored by Books at One, a social enterprise dedicated to transforming bookshops into community hubs that promote literacy nationwide. Welcome to Aran Island Discs, a podcast series where we talk to Irish people from different walks of life as they reflect on their own journeys. Join me, Russell McDermott, as we explore the many aspects of Irishness and what it means to each of our guests through life's ups and downs. Willie Walsh, welcome to Aran Island Discs.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
And the first question is, have you been to Aran Islands?
Yeah, I have actually. I've visited all three of the islands. In fact, I used to be a frequent visitor to Inisheer going back late 80s, early 90s. And I was actually out on Inishmore for a day in September last year. So yeah, beautiful, really, really beautiful place.
And it's probably a silly question, but did you fly or did you go by ferry?
So I actually flew. So I had with a group of pals, we had to share in a Cessna 172, a four-seater,
right,
based in Trim in County Meath. So I used to fly from Trim out to Inisheer. In fact, on many occasions, what I'd do is I would take three of my pals and we'd fly out to Inisheer, and then three of the other pals would drive to Galway, and I'd fly over from Inisheer to Galway, pick them up in Galway, fly them out to the island, spend the weekend or a few days on Inisheer, and then fly the guys back to Galway and go back to Inisheer and pick them up, the other guys up, and fly back to Trim. But yeah, I loved it. Yeah, Inisheer, we used to, stay in Ostone, Inisheer, go to Rory and to Ned and have a great time out there. And then, when we'd be there, I'd fly some of the guys, we'd fly over to Inishmaan, just to wander around so we could say we were there, and sometimes fly to Inishmore. But I took the last time, so in September, I went out on the ferry from Galway out to Inishmore, and then took the ferry that comes back via the Cliffs of Moher back into Galway. So it was great. Yeah, I used to love visiting there.
What's in this year? Cat 1 or Cat 3 runway?
Yeah. Well, when I used to fly out there first, it was a grass runway.
Yeah, that's what I remember. Yeah, it was so long ago since I was there. It was grass runway. That's right. Yeah.
And I can remember actually a good friend of mine, a guy called Terry Flanagan, rang me one day. It was a Saturday and I was at home, and he rang me and he said he was in Galway and he was about to get on the boat out to Inishmore, and he just wanted me to know that he was doing this, and he was laughing, saying, yeah, I bet you wish you were out here. So I thought about it for a moment, and I ran across the road where my pals lived, and two of them were there. So Tommy and Pat Callahan. I grabbed the two of them, and then my sister as well. And the four of us drove out to Trim, jumped in the airplane, flew out to Inishmore, and we were
at the pier side to greet him.
We were at the pier side, actually drinking our second pint of Guinness when he came in on the ferry, and it had been a very rough crossing, and he begs me to fly him back to Norway.
He's green around the gills, yeah.
Yeah. So we left him there on Sunday to get the ferry back to Galway, and we flew back to Trim. So it was great, to have the the freedom, obviously, to do something like that.
And good weather, and good clear weather, because it's a bleak place on a wet and windy, rainy day.
Yeah, but to be honest, all my memories of Inisheer are, okay, windy, but, blue skies, sunshine, and that beach.
The clear blue water,
Just at the end of the runway, absolutely stunning. I've photographs from, back in the 80s and 90s, and you show photographs of Inisheer, and people would swear it was a Greek island, because the sky was blue, the sea was beautiful, clear blue sea, and the white beach. It was a gorgeous place.
Yeah.
Still is a gorgeous place.
Yeah. No, some of the pictures I have, I'd be afraid to go back in case it was too wet and windy. I have 3 visits there, all good. And
when I was there in September, it was wet and windy and sunny, and it was the typical 4 seasons in one day. But I had forgotten just how beautiful it was.
Oh, yeah.
So we hired bikes when we got there, and it was, we're only on the island for a few hours.
Yeah.
Cycled around the island. And of course, these e-bikes are great now. It gives you great freedom that you can get much further than you would if you were actually just pedaling under your own steam. And, stopped off and had a pint of Guinness in probably Joe Watty's and had a pint of Guinness before getting back on the boats and heading back to Galway.
Yeah, it's probably illegal to be drinking drugs when you're cycling like that.
Yeah.
Are you still an avid cycler?
No, I do a bit. I have an e-bike, an e-mountain bike. So, obviously one of the advantages of living in Geneva is you're close to the mountains. And I have a place in Chamonix in France, which is about an hour's drive from Geneva. So I do some skiing there and a bit of trail running and mountain biking. But
sounds dreadful. It sounds absolutely dreadful.
Yeah, it is. Although the e-bike is cheating,
Hey, everybody does it now, Willie. So it helps with age. Unfortunately, it's a very good help. But you're still on a bike. How would you describe yourself, Willie, if you met somebody in an elevator and they asked you the typical, "What do you do?" How do you describe yourself in your own words?
I suppose if you have to fill in the forms, I describe myself as a business person. But, when people, I'll be honest, I like telling people I'm Irish, people who don't know me or meet me for the first time. Because some of the people I meet would have known that I ran British Airways, and because of that, they sort of assume I'm English or British. Yeah. So it's always a great kick to remind them that I'm Irish and not British. But I think I'd probably describe myself as a businessman now. I used to be a pilot, and now I'm doing real work.
For all the pilots around, please apologise. And are you surprised at the route your life took? I mean, flying was always something you wanted to do. I know it was a happenstance, the postal strike or whatever you got in. But flying was your thing, was it not? No,
pure accident. I got into this industry by, you've heard the story, the postal strike back in 1979. And they had Aer Lingus had an ad in the paper because of the strike, saying, we may not have received your application, so you can just turn up and do the aptitude tests.
Where'd you do that? Liberty Hall?
In Liberty Hall, yeah. And the whole class, one of the guys had the newspaper and he suggested that we all go. So that we all took the day off to go and do the aptitude tests. And of course, didn't bother going back to school in the afternoon. So it was a sort of a day off school more than anything else. And so it's just pure luck. And that is the way I describe my life, really. I've been very, very fortunate to be in the right place at the right time, and many opportunities have come my way, and I've grabbed all the opportunities that have been presented to me. So it's not that I set out to be a pilot or set out to get into business. I just happened to have the opportunity to do it and made the most of the opportunities that have been given to me.
And the idea, the way you flip sides, left the cockpit into kind of the ballroom, or whatever they say, was that easy for you? Well, I know there was reasons for it, but it's a strange move to make in a way. But maybe it's the way your mind works, clear thinking. You thought you had something.
I think it was an easy decision in the end. Like, I had been flying and working in the office for about 9 years, having been a pilot, just flying for about 10 years. So the second half of my flying career, I was doing both a job in the office and flying, which was great, really. That's fantastic because the work I was doing in the office works, mainly technical flight operations, technical work, was really interesting. But how it came about that I sort of stopped flying altogether was I got the opportunity. And again, it was very much at the last minute to go to Mallorca and run a small airline that Aer Lingus was the majority shareholder in the time, Futura. And that literally came up. It was I got a call on a Friday evening, and it was the deputy CEO of Aer Lingus, a guy called Larry Stanley, great guy. It was probably the closest thing to a mentor I've had. But he rang me on a Friday evening and said that they needed somebody to be in Mallorca on Monday. And, was there any chance that I could do it? And I said, yeah, no problem. I'll be there on Monday. And then he said, we want you to take over as CEO. And I thought, geez, even better. And he said, do you want to think about it? And I said, well, what's there to think about? He's, well, do you want to discuss it with your wife? I was married at the time. And I said, yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, I'll do that, but I'll be there on Monday. And it was just, a fantastic opportunity. I was 36, wow. 35 or 36, and you get a chance to, run a small airline, living in Mallorca. It was best 2 years of my life. I had agreed to do it for 3 years, and they called me back after 2. But, I was living beautiful place. The people were fantastic. The life there was great. It was hard work. Like I was working 7 days a week often and, working 12 hours a day, but I loved it. And, so that really was the main reason why I
and Futura was kind of charters, regular charters back and forth to Ireland.
Yeah. So a lot of Irish people would have flown back in those days. That was the late 90s, 98, 99. So they were regular summer charter flights from Dublin and Cork and Shannon into Mallorca and place like Malaga and then the Canary Islands during the winter. So, and it was sort of full-time into management then as a result of that move.
Yeah, most people would be scared of going into management, but you seem to have enjoyed that. It was a challenge, the way of changing things or making an impact.
Yeah, I just found the running of the airline, the all of the different aspects behind the managing the airlines, just so interesting and quite challenging. Obviously, it is a challenging industry, but I loved it. I enjoyed the flying. Flying was great, but having done it...
But flying is a very logical and sequential thing, isn't it? Like you're trained a certain way and you things react, behave, whereas business can be left, right, anything can happen. It's a very different environment.
It's different. I wouldn't say it's very different. Like the difference is in flying, we practice when things go wrong, so we're all the time practicing, potential failures so that, when or if it does happen, you know exactly what to do. It's muscle memory. You're able to respond immediately. You don't sort of sit there and have to think about what do I do now. In business, not quite as structured as that, but I think the flying experience and the flying training certainly helped me a lot in business. It does help you to think about what you might do if something went wrong. It does help you to be able to assess information quickly and make decisions quickly. So from that point of view, I think the flying training and my years of flying have definitely stood to me in my years of business as well.
So it wasn't the Meccano set, is what you're saying?
Well, we all had the Meccano set back in those days, but I love doing that. I was very fortunate. My parents were always encouraged us to think and do different things. And my dad used to let me, work on the family car. Take bits off the car and put them back. And more often than not, there'd be a bit left that I was sure where it went, but the car seemed to continue to work.
And there's 4 of you in the family, was there, kids?
So I'm the second of 5. I've got 3 brothers and 1 sister. So there's 5 of us, and I'm second in the family.
Yeah, and being Irish is important too, Willie.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm a proud Irishman. I'm also proud to say I'm European. Because I think Europe has been a huge positive. There are things wrong with Europe, but I think it has been a wonderful thing. And I have a lot of English, British friends now who despair about Brexit, the fact that it's so limited their options. They don't have the freedom of movement that they used to have and that they took for granted. And I think these are things that you don't appreciate until they're gone. But no, I'm proud to be Irish. It's, I think, like most, if not all Irish people, it's something that we're all proud of. And when you're abroad, and particularly when you're working abroad, it's definitely something that,
But it's a different thing when you're working abroad, isn't it, than the Irishness you would have in Ireland? That's what I found over the years. You become a different type of Irish person, very proud of your nationality, and people take you in a different way, whereas at home we take it for granted, that part of our personality.
That's true, yeah. And I suppose, it's probably the same no matter where you're from.
Yeah.
But no, it is like, I'm very open about the fact that, Guinness is my go-to drink. And, I have Guinness on 5 years, just over 5 years here in Geneva. One of the first things I did when I moved here, because it was during the COVID lockdown, so the pubs and restaurants were closed. But one of the guys that worked for me here used to work in the hotel industry, so I got him to get a Guinness tap for us. So we have Guinness on draft in the office. I buy these kegs of Guinness every now and then. The main reason I did it was to try and get to know people, because it's very difficult when you come into an organization and most people are working from home, so I let it be known that if anybody wanted a pint of Guinness, social distancing pint of Guinness as it was back then, but they were welcome to come into the office and meet me for a Guinness. So I think being Irish is, I see it as a positive, really, because I think there's an expectation that if you're Irish, you're friendly, you're open, you're happy. A lot of the things that people would associate with, anybody who's visited Ireland. And I've had great fun bringing colleagues, friends from Geneva, bringing them to Dublin and, showing them around and showing them the real Dublin rather than the tourist Dublin. And, they all want to see Temple Bar. But,
what a nightmare.
I show them Temple Bar.
And then get out quick, yeah.
Yeah, take them to some...
But you're young. You're young enough. Would London had changed when you went than was in the late 80s?
Oh yeah,
being Irish then with Ryanair, the early days, I can tell you, Willie, was not the same place it was 10 years later or 20 years later. Like being Irish is trendy now.
Yeah, no, you're quite right. In fact, when I moved to British Airways in 2005, and actually being Irish in business in the UK back then was definitely a positive. I got a very, very warm welcome, and people were genuinely friendly. The image of Ireland was quite positive, and people wanted to hear about the successes of Ireland, the Celtic Tiger, and everything that was going on there. So it was definitely a very positive environment. I think England, particularly England, more so than Britain, has changed. Since Brexit, without question, that there has been a change in the attitude there. I don't spend much time there now. My daughter lives in London, but I'm not a frequent visitor to London. I enjoyed living there I was there for 15, nearly 16 years. I enjoyed it, but it's quite different now to the London I moved to in 2005.
Yeah. But Geneva's, how do you find that? It's gritty and all that. It's all very serious, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I think I'm fortunate because I work for an international organization, so I work with colleagues from all around the world. So there's about 600 people here in the office in Geneva, and I think we've got 100 different nationalities working here. There's a few Irish people here, not many actually, but there are a few of us here. But there's people from all around. We've got a guy who's from North Korea. With people from, you name it. We'll have people here, and from that point of view, it's been very friendly. So I played football. We've got a football team here. We played a match yesterday, Sunday, against a group of Scottish guys who are living in Geneva. They have a team. We've played them for a couple of years in a row now. But so on the team playing with me, there was a guy from Mexico, a guy from Colombia, a French guy, a guy from Lebanon, an Indian guy, a Japanese girl. It's incredible. So Geneva I experience is different to, I think, people who would just come to Geneva on business, because it is very much an international community.
Yeah, that's different to Zurich. It was just Switzerland, different again. Yeah, very different. Yeah.
Very, very different.
And what position did you play then last night?
Well, they have me playing up front. Yeah.
A goal hanger, yeah.
Yeah, goal hanger. Yeah.
Do you pay your way? Yeah. Do you make goals? Do you score goals? Are you worth keeping?
I actually make more than I score, to be honest with you. Because, like, being typically Irish, we're generous.
Oh.
I like to pass the ball rather than take the glory. So
yeah. This sounds good for a post-match interview. Yeah, very generous.
Yeah. It's good fun. I think, I always love team sports. Like, I like, individual sports as well. I like being active, but I love playing football because you really get to know people when you're playing in an environment like that. And it's yesterday was labelled as a friendly game, which became quite practice at the end. Yeah. But it was good fun.
And how are your palabrotas for the Mexican guy and the Colombian guy? Did they work?
Yeah. So
you have some commonality, see?
Yeah. So there is a common language, both in terms of football, but also in the après match.
Yeah.
And it's just a shame that, we didn't qualify for the World Cup because, as you know, we would have ended up playing Mexico in Mexico City. Yeah. And that was something I was really looking forward to. Yeah. But no, unfortunately, we'll have to wait for another 4 years.
Yeah, it's sad in a way because I forget how many generations missed out on those experiences of the 90s and even the 2002s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you follow soccer now in this 20 years, it's kind of disappeared. And we haven't had the opportunity to go to Korea or Japan or the USA. I mean, they were fabulous times. And Italy, 90. I mean, being them all, been there, done that, and you take it for granted it will continue forever.
Yeah, no, like I was in New York for the Ireland-Italy game in 94.
Like another 50,000 people, yeah.
Yeah. And you remember the stories coming up to that. Everybody assumed it would just be full of Italians. The stories going around that they had bought all of the tickets. And I just flew in the morning of the match. And
on an ID-90, yeah.
On an ID-90. Actually, I sat in the jump seat.
Oh, right.
In the cockpit. Because a good friend of mine who was the captain on the flight, Barney Crohan, managed to get 2 tickets just the night before the game. So he rang me. And I probably shouldn't tell this story. But I'm on the phone and Ernie tells me he's got 2 tickets for the match. I said, oh, great, And I was married at the time, and my wife said, what was that? She said, I said, it's Barney. He's got tickets for the game in New York. She said, she said, great. And I said, no, he's got 2 tickets. One for me and one for him. Yeah. And then, I always remember she said, it's our first wedding anniversary.
June the 8th, wasn't it? Something like that.
So I'm going, well, I'm going to New York. As I said, the chances of Ireland playing Italy in New York in the World Cup happening again, that's never going to happen again. So I went off to New York and the rest is history, as they say. Yeah,
but I was there for my honeymoon week before we went to Bermuda. That's how I triddled it in, you know what I mean? So we lived dangerously and precariously. But what I remember about that day was when we walked in, based on what you said, the place was full of Irish flags and green. That was a shocking thing. There was no Italians at all, really.
Yeah. No, and I had gone straight from the airport. So, Barney was the captain. I'm sitting in the jump seat. We're off the aircraft as quickly as we could. We had a car waiting for us, took us to the match. And we were in we didn't have 2 seats together, so we were in different parts of the stadium. And so I walk in, I have my sort of overnight bag with me, and I had the newspaper, the Irish Independent, sort of under my arm. I walk in, I sit down, and I'm surrounded by Irish people. Said,
give us your paper.
Yeah, and I said, and where did you get that? I said, I got it in Dublin. They looked at me. What do you mean you got it? We've just landed, so I'm passing my Indo around the crowd. But it was a great experience.
That was pre-internet, so those papers were valuable in the States. Nobody got news the way they get it now.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And resilience, is that something that means something to you, Willie?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it is a word that I certainly would associate it with myself, but I think it is something that you do associate with being Irish as well. And I think of the sort of characteristics that I associate with being Irish. I think being friendly, being proud, being understated. I don't think we're the loudest about our achievements. But I think
sometimes to our detriment, I think. We all do it.
Yeah, I would agree. But I think we are tough, and I think we are determined, we are resilient. And I think, in business, especially if you're going to succeed, I think you have to, resilience is a critical characteristic of success in business.
And have you had any tough moments you've had to get through? That you've had to dig deep, apart from business things?
How long have you got?
It can't be longer than mine, Willie. So, as I say,
I suppose probably one of the toughest things for me personally was, when I was at British Airways and we had the opening of Terminal 5, which was, the event of the century, which, went terribly wrong very quickly. And it was a horrible time. It's probably the only time certainly in my time as a business person rather than a pilot, when I sat at my desk saying, I'm going to go home now because I'm being unhelpful. I'm going to kill somebody if I stay here. And I actually did. I left and I went home because I had got to the point where I was able
were you guys in the waterways building by then, were you?
In Waterside.
Waterside, yeah. Which everybody said is isolated from reality.
It was a horrible day.
But I do think, when I remember watching from a distance, I thought, because you were a pilot and thought so rationally and clearly, you were probably the right man in the right place.
It would have been much better had it gone well.
I know that, yeah.
But I think...
But it's a huge undertaking, Willie, in fairness.
Yeah, and, a lot of the things that went wrong were not the fault of British Airways.
Correct.
Which at the time I felt there was no point arguing over who was at fault.
No, you're right. You came up front, yeah.
And I can remember that. The following day, obviously I was in very early, and the press were camped out in Terminal 5. It was 24-hour news. And I said to my head of comms that I was going to go over to T5. It was only like Waterside, the BA headquarters, about a 5-minute drive over to Terminal 5. So I said, look, I'm going to go over and I'm going to talk to the press. And she said, no, don't do that, And I said, well, look, somebody has to, and I think it has to be me. So I said, I'm going to go over. I don't want you to organize anything. I'm just going to go over and I'll talk to them and I'll explain to them what went wrong. So, she was saying, I'll go over with you. So we're driving over and she said, what are you going to say? I said, I'm not sure, but I'll know when I get there. And she said, well, why not say something like, it wasn't our proudest day? And I said, yeah, okay, that's great advice. It's sort of Churchillian, I thought. But I can remember it was, I think it was Tom Simons was BBC transport correspondent. And so he was the first guy I bumped into, so there's the BBC camera and Tom sticks the microphone in front of me. He goes, well, Mr. Walsh, whose fault is this? And I said, it's mine.
Yeah. Nowhere to go. He didn't know what to say.
Sort of like, a minute of silence because he didn't know what to say. And there were a bunch of other journalists standing behind him who started laughing, because obviously he had been taken aback by the fact that, I said it was my fault. And then, of course, the next question is, so you're going to resign? And, I go, no, I'm not going to resign. I said, my job now is to fix it. We're going to fix it. We're going to make it better and all of this. But I have to be honest, it was a horrible time. Really, really horrible. And, the thing about going through events like that is you learn so much from it. And of course, that's the classic thing, learn from your mistakes, learn from other people's mistakes, share the learning. Because I wouldn't wish that on anybody, even my worst enemy, I wouldn't wish something like that on them. So, I think learning from what you got wrong and the mistakes that you make are a critical part of making yourself a better person, and certainly in business, a better business person. So,
do you think that's your pilot training? Is that your personality, or you're always cool, calm, and distilled?
No, I think that the training again helps, because one of the things we do in our industry is we're very open about when things go wrong, making sure that we learn from what went wrong to enable, to make sure it never happens again. So we've got a very open culture in aviation, which is why it's such a safe industry, because, when things go wrong, we're open about it. We tell people what went wrong. We investigate why they went wrong. And, and we share the learnings, because it's in everybody's interest that, safety is as strong as it possibly can be. So I think that culture is something that, it was instilled in me during my career as a pilot and my training, and, helps in business.
Mm. And what music would you listen to on a bad day when T5 was kind of driving you nuts? Some AC/DC?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've got a very eclectic taste in music. I like all sorts. I'm the Director General, the DG, but when we have parties here, I'm also the DJ.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I don't think it's just because I'm the boss that people like my music. I think they do tend to like the music.
You believe that, yeah?
I do, yeah. And they tell me so.
It must be true.
But I do like music. And interestingly, there's an artist, Damien Rice, I'm sure you've heard of. And I used to listen to that album, when it came out. So that's probably 20 years ago, maybe more than 20 years ago.
Yeah, more than 20, yeah.
But I saw there's a fantastic live version of some of the songs. And I saw it again just last week. It was recorded in a church in London for, I think it was BBC Radio 4. And he's singing with Lisa Hannigan singing live.
Wow.
And it's absolutely stunning. There's a great song at the end. It's called I Remember, so I remember the name of the song. And, on the album, I used to like it, but, I didn't think it was the best song. But the live version he does on that show is just outstanding. So, music, I listen to music a lot. And I can't remember what music I was listening to back in the opening of T5, but
you don't want to.
It didn't help.
And poetry, anything that you quote to people, these quotes people pass on or you get passed on in business or in motivation. Is there anything that you use?
Oh, yeah, I love, I've got a black book, like I suppose everybody has, but mainly filled with figures and information about the industry. But in that, I've got a few pages of quotes from mainly Irish.
Yeah.
So George Bernard Shaw, Oscar Wilde, Brendan Behan, William Butler Yeats, mainly George Bernard Shaw, because I love the quotes from him. And particularly when I was in the UK working for British Airways, the way it is, you're giving a speech, you generally try and find a witty quote or a quote. And in the UK, it's always Churchill or something.
Yeah.
But I loved quoting, famous Irish writers and playwrights. So I used to quote George Bernard Shaw, Oscar Wilde a lot, and Brendan Behan. Behan has a great one about being Irish. It's said it's not that the Irish are cynical. It's rather that they have a wonderful lack of respect for everything and everybody. And I used to say, that is what being Irish is about. And particularly in the UK, that attitude of a wonderful lack of respect for everything and everybody, was, I used to love quoting that, but
but sometimes it's also self-deprecating self-respect. It works, you know what I mean? Is you can say things and not be insulting.
Yeah.
Especially when you're abroad in Switzerland or England, it comes across in the right way. Here it's boring because we all say it every day, but abroad it has a better magnitude.
Yeah, when I announced that I was leaving IATA, so I sent an email around to everybody, and I quoted, I can't remember if it's Oscar Wilde or George Bernard Shaw now, but it's that famous quote about, some cause happiness wherever they go, some whenever they go.
And people appreciate that.
Yeah, but a couple of people said to me, what did you say that for? I like it, I think it's a nice quote. And they said, well, did you mean something by it? It depends on how you hear it yourself, but I thought that was a great quote.
Take from what you will. Your PR person wouldn't recommend it, but hey.
But the great thing about having, to be fair, my PR person in BA, Julia Simpson, was absolutely wonderful. And, she, I probably made her life hell, but she would give me great advice, which I would typically ignore. And the great thing about having people like that is they don't get offended when, you give them advice, because it's just another input, and you can decide whether it's the right sort of thing to do or the wrong thing to do. And, without question, going over to talk to the press the morning after the opening of T5 was the right thing to do.
It was.
She was right, though, to caution me, because it could have gone horribly.
It could have gone left or right, yeah. But I thought brave is probably the wrong word, but it's very It was a very amazing thing to do at the time, I remember, and only an Irish person in a way could go in and be disarmed and disarm people, I feel.
Yeah, it was funny because I'm sure you've done it, but I was doing some radio interviews, and it was on they have the so-called radio van, so it's set up as a sort of a little studio in a van, and it was parked outside T5. So after doing the TV journalists, I went out to do an interview with BBC in the radio van, and the technician who was setting it up said, I listened to your interviews. He said, you did really well. That was really well. But he said, I was surprised you admitted that it was your fault. He said, I thought that was a stupid thing to do. And I'm sitting there and they said, oh, okay, we're going live now. It was a stupid thing to do, ringing in my ears as I start the interview on BBC Radio 4 or something. But but sometimes the stupid thing to do is the right thing to do as well.
And going to India now is another challenge.
Yeah, it wasn't something I planned to do, but again... You
got the call, obviously, when the space came up, did you?
Yeah, it typifies my career in that, I hadn't planned to do anything. I was actually...
But you're not being fair to yourself, Willie. The opportunities come. People can miss those calls because their frame of mind is not right. You seem open to new things and willing to take the risk. Not everybody thinks that way when the call comes.
No, that's
so you
fair.
Do make your own luck.
I know a lot of people who work hard to progress and don't get the opportunity. Yeah. But you're quite right. It's no secret. I became the CEO of Aer Lingus back in 2001 because nobody else wanted it.
Yeah.
They had actually been in a process and had offered the job. It was going to be an external appointment, and I'd offered the job to somebody. And then 9/11 happened, and the guy who'd been offered the job decided he wasn't going to take it. I spoke to him afterwards. I met him a couple of years later, and I said, "Do you regret not taking it?" he said, "No, absolutely not." He said, "There's no way I could have done what you did because," he said, "I didn't know anything about the airline industry."
Yeah,
and in the middle of that sort of crisis, he said, "I wouldn't have known what to do." Whereas, he said, you knew the business, you knew what you could do, you knew what you couldn't do. So, but when opportunities like that come along, I've always taken the view, you'll never regret the chances you take. You'll often regret the chances you don't take. So when this opportunity in India came along, it was exactly that. I felt that I would probably regret it if I didn't do it. When I was meeting with them and, they were saying they were very keen to get me. And I said, look, I'm 64, and the guy who's the principal shareholder, a fantastic guy called Rahul Bhatia, he said, well, welcome to the club. So he was sort of completely dismissive of age being a factor. So, you get an opportunity like that, and it's going to be fun. I've traveled to India a lot. I think I'm going there with my eyes open. I love the environment there. It's funny. I spoke about it to some people here. It's the polar opposite to Geneva.
Yeah, absolute chaos.
Yeah. So Geneva, one of the things I talk about when people say, "What's Geneva like?" And I said, "Well, everything
it's like
works.
A cuckoo clock. It comes out every day at the same time."
Yeah, everything works. I leave my apartment. I live in the centre of Geneva. I get the train out to the airport where my office is. I leave at 6:35 every morning. Every morning, they're washing the streets, washing the pavement. Every morning.
Yeah.
And, I have to cross one road, and I get to the traffic lights, and if the pedestrian light is red, there are people standing there who won't cross the road.
It's illegal, Willie. It's illegal to cross the red button.
But it's 6:30 in the morning. So,
no.
So I walk across the road, and you'll see people will stand there, shake their heads, this crazy guy.
He's from Ireland.
Yeah, but then you go to India. I was in Delhi 2 weeks ago, and it was funny. I was being driven, and it was early in the morning, so I could actually see the lane markings on the road. So I knew how many lanes there were. And they were free because I could, you can see them. And then later on that day, I'm on the same road, and there's 8 cars abreast on this road.
Probably no wing mirrors. They take off the wing mirrors.
Well, it's just, and everybody's just moving along, blowing their horn. In Geneva, if you blow your horn, it's the world is about to end. But it's one extreme to the other. And I think I'm looking forward to that sort of organized chaos that I'll experience there. But I love Indian food. I've worked with many Indian people and people of Indian heritage over the years, and I'm really looking forward to doing that. And again, I think being Irish again is definitely a positive in an environment like that.
Yeah, you're still off the lattes and cappuccinos, eh?
Yeah, less than It's
a legend now. The legend has grown, has it? You're off this and that and the other.
I'm now down to double espressos, so.
Well, you're very focused. You did take a view of your personal health. You obviously, it's the way you're very organised and orderly.
I went through a period, it was probably 2015, and I can remember getting up one morning, looking in the mirror, and I could see my father looking back at me.
It happens, really, trust me.
Yeah. I got a shock, and obviously, it didn't happen overnight. But you go, God, I don't feel like that. And so I decided, I needed to have a bit more focus. Because one of the problems with business, as you know, is you're often, you're not working regular hours. You're not eating at regular times. You're eating food that you probably shouldn't be eating. And I just felt I needed to focus a little bit more on, I wanted to lose some weight, and I lost.
You know what you can trust? The protection you get when you bundle home and auto insurance with Progressive. You know what you can't trust? Everything else, apparently. Like when you saw that article that said that thing you eat every day is a superfood and great for your gut health. But then 30 seconds later, a different article warns you to avoid it and it's taking years off your life. Well, which is it? Kind of a big difference there. Anyway, bundle home and auto insurance with Progressive for reliable coverage in a reliably unreliable world. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and third-party insurers. Not available in all states or situations.
Welcome to the Score Bet, where betting on game day is made easier with all the promos and player props you need in a seamless and easy-to-use experience. Whether it's home runs, three-pointers, or shots on goal, there's no better place to own the moment. Right now, new players can get their first bet insured up to $1,000 in bonus bets. More action, more rewards, more for you. The Score Bet. Download the app today. Must be 21 plus. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Actually, I lost too much weight, and people were noticing.
Yeah, it became an issue then.
Yeah, and it did. And people thought I was ill. And O'Leary rang me.
Yeah. Well, he did the same, funnily enough.
Yeah, but he rang me. I forgot, I'd done an interview with BBC, I think, and he rang me. He saw the interview and he said, he said, you look like shite. What are you doing to yourself? As only he could say. Yeah. And it was sort of only then that I sort of realized, I'd probably gone a little bit over the top and moderated back a bit. So, but I try to eat healthily, and, I do quite a bit of sport. I do enjoy my odd pint of Guinness, and
I've heard that, yeah.
And I do enjoy good red wine. So, that's something I'm not going to stop. So I have been checking out to make sure.
As you know from living in Spain, drinking red wine has never hurt anybody.
Well, not only has it never, like when I was in Spain, in Mallorca back in, so this would have been 98, I had to do a medical for an insurance policy that the company had. So I go to this private hospital to do the medical, and there's a female doctor there, and she looks at my file and she says, "Oh, you're a pilot." I said, "Oh, you've done loads of medicals and you'll be fine." And she says, "Oh, you're Irish." And that's it. So she said, "So you drink?" I said,
one glass a day.
I said, "That's outrageous." And she said, "You do drink, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And, so she said, "Well, what do you drink?" And I said, "Well, drink a couple of pints." "Excellent." "Drink some wine." "Very, very good." And she says, "Red or white?" I said, "No, I only drink red wine." "Excellent." I said, "Don't drink white wine."
Yeah.
I said, "So how much red wine would you drink?"
One unit.
But I sort of went, maybe a couple of bottles. I said, "A day?" I said, "No, during the week, a couple of bottles during the week." I said, not enough. At least a half a bottle of red wine a day. Yeah. And she swore by it. She said,
"No, I've been living in Spain for 20 years. Yeah. It's never done anybody any harm. I can tell you that for a fact." So,
so it's on medical orders that I drink red wine now.
Have you ever cried, Willie? Are you emotional?
Of course I've cried.
Okay. Because you always come across as so deliberate and considered. It's, you don't see that side of your personality.
Yeah, but maybe not as emotional as some people. Yeah, in fact, some people have commented on the fact that I don't show my emotions, and maybe I should show them a bit more often. But I don't think that's a business thing. It's maybe just something that I've become accustomed to, and then it becomes a bit of fun that you don't sort of show your emotions as much as others. But I experience all emotions. I was at the Ireland-Hungary game in Budapest when we came back from 2-1 down to win 3-2. Like you can't but be emotional when you see something like
sick
that.
as a parrot, literally.
Yeah. So I was there as a guest of Joe Verratti, who's the CEO of Wizz Air.
Yeah.
And 10 minutes to go, and I said, congratulations, Joe. And he said, no, don't say that. Don't say that.
Yeah.
He said, and then, of course, we get 2-2. And I said, I can't remember the last time we scored 3 goals. But that was an incredible occasion. And, you associate emotion, I do a lot anyway, with, sporting events. And it's something that I always enjoy still. But no, I'm sure I have some emotion somewhere.
And in closing, Willie, are you surprised at where the guy from Mount Sion Hill Road ended up when you look back in your life? Is it all a bizarre thing? Or I know you said it's not planned, it's good fortune. Are you surprised looking back?
I am.
You're still going places, but just reflecting on where you've got now in India with Indigo.
Definitely, I am very surprised. It's not what I had expected. It's been a wonderful career so far. I've had incredible experiences, and I've had the opportunity to meet some incredible people, as a result of the positions that I've been in. So, it's something that, I still pinch myself every now and then and say, here's the young guy from Drumcondra, and look at him now. But I think the aviation industry is something where, obviously Irish people have excelled over the years. I think a lot of that, I've always put it down to, the fact that Tony Ryan started the leasing industry. And as a result of that, you have Irish people pretty much everywhere in the world, particularly in the leasing side of the business. I probably shouldn't be telling this when Michael isn't here to defend his good honour, but I remember Michael O'Leary and I were at an event, and we were both speaking at it, and somebody asked that question from the audience, why are there so many Irish people in the airline industry, the aviation industry? So, of course, I gave the diplomatic answer, and I mentioned Tony Ryan and aircraft leasing. And then O'Leary says, no. He said, it's much simpler than that. He said, the airline industry is full of liars, bullshitters, and drunks. And he said, and we excel at all three of our lives.
Oh, Mick. I went to school with Mick. Yeah, I know Mick a long time. Yeah, it's typical Mick.
No, fantastic.
Did you ever meet Tony? Did you?
I met Tony many times.
Yeah.
Again, a tough character, a tough guy, and deserves a huge amount of credit. But again, I think one of the things that Tony did well is he surrounded himself with good people. And that's the easiest thing in business. It's something that I always try and do, get people who you can trust and respect, and surround yourself with them, and then bask in the glory of the wonderful job that they do. So, I think Tony does deserve great credit for what he did, both at GPA and at Ryanair. But I think you've got to give huge credit to Michael for, turning Ryanair into what it is today.
Yeah, and he's still a force. And to end, are you optimistic about the aviation industry?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, like I suppose,
You have to be in one way.
Yeah, it's my job.
Yeah. Like how many billion people in India, there's opportunity there. I can't believe there's no wide body, only 50 wide body aircraft.
Yeah.
Scary.
Yeah, it's incredible. It is, for a population of 1.4 billion.
Yeah.
But I'm very optimistic. It's a wonderful industry. It's tough. But then every industry is tough, and every industry has its challenges. But I'm very optimistic about the future.
Willie Walsh, thank you for joining us today on Aran on this.
Thank you.